We're talking actors and directors who put on the shows.
We're talking playwrights and designers who you'll want to know.
From the very first rehearsal to the final curtain call.
We might be off Broadway, but we're talking about it all.
'Cause we're two local gals
With global pals, it's everything, everything, everything theater.
with Benita
And Ellen. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Everything Theater Podcast, the podcast where we talk about
everything theater, and there is so much to talk about. Hi, everybody. I'm Benita Zahn,
And I'm Ellen Cribbs.
and we're delighted to be here with all of you because, well, look, summer theater is in full swing right now, but with a very different look. And where are we going from here as we begin to approach the winter and the Delta variant? And Ellen, you and I spoke a show ago about the changes to equity, but people are in a vacation mind, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think everyone's kind of enjoying the summer while we can because, you know, who knows what the fall is going to bring.
Exactly. And with that in mind, we have gone over hill and over water to bring you our guest today. It is Lynn Bolton. She is the producing artistic director and everything for the White Heron Theatre in Nantucket. And welcome.
Thank you, Benita. It's so nice to see you.
We were so hoping to get together face to face. We were part of that, Albany to Cape Cod connection to go vacation, but everybody and their uncle came to visit us. So Lynn, Ellen and I need a trip. We're reserving the right to come visit down the road.
You are always welcome. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, I'm going to start with, and I joked with Lynn before, being the recovering TV news reporter. I want we'll get to the theater per se in a moment, but in many ways, you got your start in the theater of the absurd. You were in politics.
It's true. That is true.
How does one go from being a press secretary to President Reagan to being a Yale Drama School graduate to creating this theater and the theater in Nantucket?
We always laugh and say that it's all high drama, and I guess that's true where politics is concerned. I started out in Louisville, Kentucky, which is where I was born, and I worked for Actors Theater of Louisville. So as a young girl, I was part of a company of actors that worked during the bicentennial for Actors Theater of Louisville. And then after that, I went to college and decided that maybe politics was a more interesting field. So I moved to Washington with my roommate from college, and we walked door to door, literally door to door in the House of Representatives to get a job. And I did. I was hired by Bud Brown, who had been the congressman from Ohio, who had spoken at my graduation. And then I ended up marrying his chief of staff many years later. But I went into the Reagan administration, worked both at the Department of Agriculture and did press work. So and then I made the full circle. I got married and I had children, and I went back to the theater, which was my first love.
And voila, the curtain up on the theater. You started in New York City.
Yes.
What precipitated the movement and to Nantucket?
Well, Earl Gister, who was the head of grad acting at Yale, I was primarily an actor then, and we were working on things that were interesting to us, like mid-century existential plays and Chekhov and, things that we thought we'd like to delve into. And so we did that for a long time. Earl was in his 80s, and he got sick, he passed away, and so I was sort of left with the company. And although, Earl always said, Lynn, I think you're a director, really. At that point, I was just an actress. So I wasn't sure what I wanted to do or how to do it or if I could do it. So I kept hearing Earl in my ear, though, saying, he used to always say there's great theater outside of New York. And it's important to go there because, there's a lot of theater in New York, but it's important to take it out into the world. He was from Wisconsin, and he used to say, we got this movie theater and we scraped all the gum off the floor and we opened it up and we did classical theater in Wisconsin. And you should think about going, out of New York. So I had a cottage, just a little cottage by the sea out here in Nantucket. And I came out to do a few plays, and I met a man who became my partner in the theater, Michael Kopko, who was trained sort of similarly. He was a Juilliard person. And so we decided to give it a try. It was, I think if we'd known better, I don't know. It's a hard road, as all things are, but it has been so rewarding. And next year is our 10th anniversary. So, we're still here.
When you went out and you opened White Heron, you were it. There was no other
Yes.
resident. Has anyone said, "Oh, this looks good. I think maybe we're going to move in across the street"? Or are you still it?
We've had there was a community theater here who had been here for a long time, and I had done a lot of community theater in the young days when I had little kids, and I love that. I love community theater. I think it's really important. There are two theaters on the island, On the Isle, which is a community theater here on the far end of the island, and the Theater Workshop of Nantucket. But that was a community theater, but they've now become a small professional theater. So they have sort of gotten the idea.
Are you downtown, if you will, downtown Nantucket, or you're at which one of the beaches are you out by?
Yes, we're in the historic district downtown. We're right behind the Whaling Museum.
Oh,
so we're right in the center of downtown, very close to the ferries, and right across from the town hall. So
easy to come over. Just make sure you're in sneakers to walk the cobblestone.
Exactly right. Exactly right. But we're here. We'd love to see anybody we love to be able to have people come over from the Cape and people who are here for the day. You can take the lake ferry back. So we've had a lot of visitors, a lot of guests. And Nantucket this summer is particularly busy. We've had more people here than we've ever had any year. 80,000 people on the island.
Wow. So many of the theaters in the Berkshires, as you well know, have built outdoor theaters, outdoor stages to accommodate audiences. What's going on with you folks? Indoors, outdoors? What are you doing?
Well, we tried to go outdoors, actually, in a collaboration with the Whaling Museum next door, and they had a property called The Oldest House, which was the oldest house on Nantucket, and it had a park around it, and we wanted to go into that venue. We were going to build an outdoor theater. The neighbors objected. They didn't like the noise. They didn't want theater outside near them. And so we explained as we were going along, we can't go inside now because equity wouldn't give us contracts to go inside. But right before we were supposed to start building out there, the union said, actually, we've changed our mind. June 30th, you can go inside. So we decided, so that we don't upset anyone, we'd come back inside. So we brought it inside, and we've had full houses throughout the summer. I mean, people have come inside, but they've just made an announcement in the last 2 or 3 days that they are expecting a huge rise in cases on the island. And so we are debating about whether or not we're going to continue with our indoor programming for the rest of the summer, because we don't want to be the center of an infection or anything that's happening. And we wonder if people are going to feel comfortable coming to the theater. So we're going to see what we're going to do.
What are you going to do for the rest of your season?
Well, right now we have 2 one-person shows programmed. One called Sea Monsters of the Deep, which is a really interesting sort of, it's a new play based on Tony Sarg, who was an old Nantucket guy who ran a little shop called the Old Curiosity Shop. He's the one who made the balloons for the Macy's Day Parade. And back in the 1930s, in the early 1931, he created a sea monster balloon and launched it into the harbor in Nantucket. And people kept seeing it floating around in the fog, and they thought there was a sea monster. So the newspaper was in on this, wrote an article about how there's a sea monster in the harbor, and the people who were doing previews for movies, Path A, I think is what they are, came and did a thing about it. Anyway, he was quite a character, and he lived here. The Macy's lived here, and so he created the balloons for the parade. This show is about a young boy who was here in the 1930s, who saw this sea monster, and who comes back to Nantucket to sort of face his fears. So, world premiere.
Oh, love it. Because you do a blend of classic and new plays, correct?
We do. We've really have a commitment to new plays now. We just got a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts for a new play about Mariah Mitchell, who was the first astronomer, a woman, in the early 1800s. So I try to do a lot of things about women, about sort of redemptive kind of work, plays with hope, because I think we need it. And there's a lot of hope out there, I think. Good news in plays that are both classical and new.
And
so
tell us a little bit about your radio series as well, because is that something that came up because of COVID, that you launched that, and are you going to continue doing it?
It did, and we are. We launched it because we wanted to continue storytelling, and I felt really strongly that we needed to use a classical vehicle for storytelling, and radio is that. I really wanted to be able to do storytelling where the family could gather around and listen to the story, and that's exactly what happened. We decided that there was a book written by a woman named Blue Balliet. It was Nantucket Ghost Stories, and they were real stories, true accounts, 44 true accounts. And so we've got all of our company of actors, and we recorded them, and we broadcast them on the radio, but we also put them out on podcasts like this, and simulcast on Apple Podcasts. And so we had people listening to them all over the world. And it was really quite gratifying and interesting to see how many people were interested in listening to the radio. And we got lots of letters about, people with their families sitting outside listening to the ghost stories. And it was a big hit. So we will continue it. We ended up doing the final ghost story of the year is our Nantucket Christmas Carol. We've taken a Christmas Carol and adapted it to Nantucket. It's a perfect fit because the novella was written in 1830 and the height of the whaling era here was 1830. And so we transformed that, and Christopher Plummer played the narrator in that in our radio series. And it was the last thing he did before he passed away in January. So we were very honored to have him part of our
What
part
is
of
your
our radio
season run time-wise, including the radio? Your
What is
season,
the time?
the season run, month to month.
Oh yeah, right. We start in we usually have a show, something for Daffodil Weekend, which is the sort of opening of the season here. So we usually have something on the stage, a reading or, a new play or something. We usually start in June, although this year we started a little later in July, just because people weren't quite ready and we weren't quite ready. And we run June through September, and then we do new plays in the fall where we bring in playwrights and actors, and we work through new plays, usually at the end of the process for those plays, where they're about ready to be produced, but they still need some work and they need to be before an audience. So we bring them in and we work for a month on that. Then we start our rehearsals for a Nantucket Christmas Carol, and we run through Stroll. We open on Thanksgiving Day and we run through Christmas Stroll. And then we're dark in the winter, but we do have, this year we have a really interesting program with Sarah Lawrence College. And we've done this before, where we turn our theater, which is in the center of town, and the dormitories that go with the yacht club next door, and the Culinary Institute, which is across the street, and we create a college campus downtown. The kids have classes in theater, they produce a feature film, and they live next door, and they revitalize downtown Nantucket by living here from January until May in the winter. So we're thrilled about this collaboration and our connection to Sarah Lawrence and this film program. And it's fun to have 40 college students here living downtown in Nantucket. It's exciting.
You know, these have been challenging times, to say the least, for theater and for performers.
Yes.
And to hear you talk about that collaboration and the radio show, while it has been a challenge, it has also given rise to other ways of thinking about performing and performing theater and creating art. You said the magic word, though, is something Ellen and I have been talking about with local theaters. You said equity. And Ellen, you want to, the conversation that we had.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we've just kind of been talking to people about what changes that will bring about with the new open access policy as an equity theater. Have you had time to really kind of stop and think about how that will affect your casting and your equity contracts and so forth?
Yes, we are, we're a small professional theater, an SPT 6 contract for actors equity. But we hire, even though we're not required to under our current contract, we hire all equity actors, and all of our staff are equity. So for us, this is actually a boon, because there are a lot of small theaters that can run on a special appearance contract, or on a contract that doesn't cost them much money, but they can claim to be a professional theater. And the truth is, I think under this new contract, now that everyone is going to be allowed to be part of the union, and they're all going to join, it'll be difficult for those theaters to hire actors who are proficient but not members of the union. That was really true before this happened. There were a lot of people who either chose not to join the union or who couldn't do so. And so, they especially young actors, they were good actors, but they were not members of the union. And often those actors could be hired. But for us, it doesn't really change anything. We always hired equity actors. We're an equity theater. And we, even though we're not required to, we fill our ranks with equity actors. So it's an interesting change. I think it affects mostly small theaters who don't want to hire a full equity cast. And that's going to be difficult for them now, because those actors are all going to join the union. Many of them are, and it's going to be harder to find those people at that level.
Do you think this will serve, and you also talked about your work, theater and beyond, in terms of equity and women's empowerment. Will this have that payoff? And there's been pros and cons argued about this. The BIPOC community argues for it and against it. There's a push, for reaching out and educating. What are your thoughts? Because you're in the mix.
Yes, I think it's really important to be able to be very inclusive, to be able to have, people of color, women, people who have, there aren't very many women artistic directors in this country. They're few and far between. And so I feel really lucky and blessed to be able to run a theater, as a woman. And because I want to make sure that women playwrights, that actors, that, plays with people of color are all part of the mix here. And I think it's important to do it. We finally have a time where everyone is recognizing that and making changes. And, classical theater can be, we can have non-traditional casting in classical theater. And the play we just did, Peter and the Starcatcher, I cast a woman as a man. I cast a woman playing Lord Astor, who was her father, is played by a woman, and her nanny, Molly's nanny, is played by a man. And we switched back and forth all the way through the play with gender role switching. And it was interesting when I had a conversation with the costume designer. I said to her, please don't enhance their bodies in any way. Don't create a womanly form for the man who is playing her nanny. And please don't make the woman who is playing her father into a man. What I want is fluid gender roles, and we succeeded in that, I think. And it was fun for everybody, but it was also an important statement, I think, on what we can do.
But that would have been more comfortable. I played Tilney in Shakespeare in Love, and that mustache was a misery.
Luckily, the man who played Black Stash in this production grew this horrific mustache for the part, and he was auditioning for something for television last week, and he said to them, do you want to wait until I close this show, because I've got this gross mustache? And they said, no, we think this is going to work well. So he went ahead and did it.
Talk to us a little bit about fundraising and the challenges, being out there in the middle of the ocean, and you're small.
Yes. Yeah, we are. We're about, our budget is about $1.5 million a year. And we have a building which we maintain. So it's very difficult. We fundraise all the time, and we have to do that. We have a group of people who support us who are incredibly generous, and they come through. I found during the time that we were dark, we had people writing checks and sending them to us and saying, we want you to survive. This matters to us. You make a difference on this island. We want you to stay. But we've also reached out to we have applied for a lot of grants, and we've been very fortunate this year to get a grant from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for work that we're doing with kids. We have a great program there that we do young playwrights, and they write 10-minute plays. Our kids in high school here, they write 10-minute plays, and then the company reads them for the public. And I have to tell you, Benita, I've never laughed so hard. The insight into 16-year-old kids' minds, they're brilliant, they're geniuses, they're creative and smart. And, we have this cast of actors who are Broadway actors and, have done plays all over the country, reading these plays. And sometimes we can't even get through it. They're so funny. And so it's one of our favorite evenings in the theater here. But we got a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts, which was very helpful. And, we've gotten some help from the Small Business Administration. And we have our managing director, Josh Bornstein, was at the Long Wharf Theater for 10 years. And before that, 13 years. And before that, he was at the Huntington. He teaches at Yale. He teaches theater management at Yale. And he's great. But, he really gets it done. He makes sure that we, bring everyone in, that they understand what we do, that they become part of our family. And truly, that's the case. They come, they spend time with us when we read new plays, behind the scenes sort of stuff, and they feel very much a part of our small little theater. So That's been
We're going to hit
helpful.
the lightning round in a moment, but I want to ask, because I'm sure, for the folks, especially now, that whole change with equity, folks are going to wonder, how can they get in front of you? How can they get you to see them if they think, boy, that is an experience, a company that really speaks to me?
I see everybody. And I really make it a point to make sure that I see everybody who wants to be seen. So write to me. And, there are, I think a lot of artistic directors don't do it, but I remember being in that position and I feel really strongly about it. We do 2 or 3 days of open auditions at Equity. And then after we see equity members, I always see non-equity members. If there are any left after we make this change, but that's great. No, I really, so we bring them in and I audition everybody. You can also send me a clip, a video clip of something if you would like me to see it. And I look at all of them and I respond to everybody. So,
Wow.
Bravo.
I
Yeah.
feel so strongly about it. I don't have a lot of jobs to give out every summer. There's probably 20 actors in the company for the summer, and they come back often, and so we have all of that. But I am happy to see anybody and talk to them about their career, what they hope to do, because I feel really strongly that we need to help people, young actors and older actors, older people who want to become actors at 55 or 75. That's legitimate, I think. And I think often older actors who want to come into the business later are often discouraged. And I think that's not right. We need actors in every demographic category. And so I encourage it. So anybody who's a playwright, who has new plays, whatever you want to, write to me. I'll talk to you.
I'm also kind of curious because you mentioned how a lot of your audience are guests to Nantucket. Marketing wise, how do you get the word out if people are just kind of there for a few days, and how do you reach out to them to say, hey, come check out a play while you're visiting?
It's a challenge, frankly, because it's an odd thing, trying to capture that. My children, actually, who are marketing people in their 20s and early 30s, said to me, Mom, you need to use, get someone who can help you with digital media, because that's what they do. And so we do geofencing on Facebook and on other digital platforms, so that when people arrive on the island, they get a message from us that says, we're here. We'd love to see you if you'd like to come. And this is what we're doing. And it's worked very well. And we also use the local platforms. We advertise on the radio. And we also, Yesterday's Island, which is a wonderful newspaper, a tabloid for visitors, has been very generous to us. And they put us on the cover. I had this a minute ago, I don't know where it is. They put us on the cover this week. And so it's been great. And, when that happens, we find we're sold out every night because people know we're here. So it's a good thing.
Excellent. Well, I think we've reached the time where we're going to move on to our lightning round, as Benita said. This segment, Lynn, is called the close-up. And these are just quick fire questions, just all about you personally.
Okay.
So, Lynn, are you ready for your...
in the seatbelt?
Yeah, exactly.
I will.
Lynn, are you ready for your close-up?
Yes.
So what was the moment in your life when you just knew, I have to do theater?
When I was a little kid, we used to, and it sounds really corny, we would go inside and take the shower curtain out of my parents' shower and hang it between 2 trees, and we would get the neighborhood kids together, and I directed, and the parents would come and sit in their chairs with their cocktails and watch us do, 3 Billy Goats Gruff, and I thought, it seems to be something that I'm meant to do. So.
And what did your parents think when you said, you know what, this is the path I'm going to take?
I think I didn't really take the path. They were very supportive. My dad is an architect and an artist. And, I worked at Actors Theater of Louisville in Kentucky, where I was from. And so they were very supportive of it. I had a little detour into politics there for a while and then came back. But I was lucky. My parents were artists and artistically inclined. So they were supportive of what I wanted to do.
And you've done a lot of on stage and behind the stage, obviously as artistic director, directing, all that. Do you have, is there one specific field that is your real passion?
Directing is my thing. And my favorite plays and playwright, I think, is Chekhov, turn of the century sort of classic drama. And we did Shaw, we did Candida in the early days of the theater, and we took it to Edinburgh, to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. And it was a hit, I think, because it was so classical, because it was classical and classically done, and everything else was so fringy. We became the fringe of the fringe by doing the classical play. It was crazy and fun.
Is there a specific play in your life that's just had a huge impact on you?
There are two, I guess. I did Hamlet when in Kentucky at a time when my father was ill and dying, and I was there. I was able to live with him, and I was able to live with my mother and father. My children were very young, and my husband so graciously agreed to manage the home thing, and I took the job playing Gertrude and Hamlet in Kentucky, and it started, inside, went outside, went back inside, went to Indiana, and I was sort of doing that play with all of those sort of themes of death and I was going through this, this illness with my father, and it helped me to sort of see the light in the darkness. And it's very interesting because all of my work now is finding the light in the dark. And I think that play was the key to doing that. In order to survive, I had to find, what is the redemptive part of all of this tragedy? And it's there. It's there.
Wow.
What would be your advice to a young person entering the theater? What would be your number one thing that you would tell them?
I would say do it. Act. I think people, they spend a lot of time in the classroom. That's great, and that's important. And I think learning how to do it and do it correctly is really, really valuable. But I would also say act. Do community theater. Do the smallest part you can get in anything that you can do, and create your own work, because really at the end of it all, in the theater, you have to do a lot of different things. And so if you can create your own opportunities and your own work and do it, it'll be recognized, and you'll end up folding into the mainstream part of the business. But theater is theater and art is art, and you can do it yourself. So I would suggest that's what they do and start that way.
For a lot of folks, Lynn, it's Broadway. You've made it if you get to Broadway. I have another friend who's incredibly talented, and his contention has always been, I just want to make a living at doing what I love doing. Right. Do you think this time, the pandemic has really refocused the light on that it doesn't matter where, it matters that you are and what?
That's just such an important question, and so exactly right. I think artists now and people who want to, everyone's an artist. Everyone has ideas and creativity and ways of seeing the world that are different from everyone else's. And so your voice is important. And to be able to talk about the way you see the world and, the things that matter to you makes you an artist. And I think you're exactly right. I think the pandemic has allowed us all to take time to breathe, to calm down, to look at the world, to have opinions about it, to think about how then shall we live? How do I want to live in this world? How do I want to make a difference? What do I want to do? I think it's brought out the artist in all of us, because that's essentially what art is. It's examining that way of living, the way we relate to other people, and how we want to make a difference in the world. So I think people are starting to do it themselves, and I think it's really important that they do.
Well, Lynn, this has been an absolute joy talking to you today. Thank you so much for taking the time. It was tell us a little, just give us the quick details about your season at White Heron one more time.
Yes, we have Peter and the Starcatcher, which is up now. And we have a student program that's going up next week. Carrie, the musical, which is very interesting. They've taken a sort of a social justice look at bullying and kids in school. And then we have The Half, which is a story of a man who decides to take his career in his own hands and does a 4-hour one-man Hamlet by himself to rejuvenate his career. And then Sea Monsters of the Deep. And we end the second week of September. So, and then we have A Christmas Carol starting on Thanksgiving Day. So we'd love to see anybody who'd like to come out.
Excellent. Go check it out, everybody. Take a little vacation. Benita and I will.
And what, big conversation in the capital region now, as I'm sure all around, if to keep your doors open, you will only let people in who are vaccinated. And that's really being debated about. Might that be something you're looking at, or you're just going to go, you know what, let's stay home?
Yeah, no, I think, we want, everyone wears a mask in the theater now, and we would like them to be vaccinated. We've not taken that step, but we will, I think. I mean, we have to, we really can't put people's lives at risk, and certainly actors on stage who aren't masked. Right now we're distanced and inside, but, get vaccinated. We really, for everyone's health and safety.
And with that, we're sadly out of time, but thank you so much, Lynn Bolton. I am Ellen Cribbs.
And I'm Benita Zahn. Again, Lynn, thank you. Have a great rest of your season, and carry on. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Everything Theater podcast. Special thanks goes out to Alice Grinling for our photography and Justin Friello for composing our amazing theme song. Please remember to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you want to share your thoughts or what's going on in your theater community, you can reach out to us on social media or through our email at everythingtheaterpodcast@gmail.com. Till next time, it's everything, everything, everything.